We are here today with Kris Rice from the Chill Pod, and we're going to be talking about the benefits of cold plunges, ice baths. I don't know how you say it.
Cold plunging.
Okay, so let's go.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm excited. So, do you have all kinds of questions about cold plunging, or what are you wondering?
I do
How
have
did you get
one.
started?
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. How did you get
Origin
started
story.
with cold plunging?
Good question. I resisted it for a long time. So, the short story of it is I have two daughters, and my older daughter had a lot of mental health struggles when she was younger. And so, in addition to just life being busy, I was really her advocate and trying to figure out how to help her feel better. And in doing that, I leaned to a lot of alternative wellness or just less conventional, more holistic ways to support health and well-being. And so as she navigated her path, I really saw in myself a lot of the same anxieties and challenges that she was facing. I saw them in myself too. And so it really sent me down a path of trying to figure out what can I do to help myself feel better. And I explored a lot of different things. I found a lot of things that I loved, like yoga and breath work and meditation and all these things, but they all take a lot of time. And at the end of the day, it just felt super defeating to know that I had these things, but then also that I could never fit them in. And
Mm.
so it was really from that space that a friend of mine suggested that I try cold plunging. She's like, I think you'll love it. And I was just like, no, hard pass, don't want to do it. It sounds terrible. No, thank you. And so she was persistent. She kind of kept trying, probably honestly 3 or 4 times. And by that last time, I think I just felt like I had nothing to lose. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, I am reconfirmed to hate cold water. Like, that's about it. And
Yeah.
so it was from that place that I tried it. I didn't tell anyone, and I bought a horse trough to bring in our backyard. So I was like, this is embarrassing. I don't want anyone to know this is happening, but I'm going to give it a try. And so I did, and I loved it. And so it was really from that horse trough that I dreamt up the chill pod and everything that came after.
You're chilling in the chill pod, dreaming up the chill pod in your horse trough, right?
The chill pod's a little elevated from the horse trough.
That's fair. That's fair. Um,
Anything is, honestly.
what did you, I mean, I'm from Chicago. I hate the cold. I'm a fan
Yep.
of cold plunging though. I've seen the benefits myself.
Mhm.
I'm curious because I find it interesting to hear like different people's benefits and how they experienced it. Like,
Totally.
did you feel like you were going in with like a apprehensive mind to begin with, or is that part of the reason why you feel like it was so profound? Like, what was your experience like?
Yeah, I think I did go in with really low expectations, almost kind of a cynic's perspective of like, prove me wrong. Like, how can this really be all these things that people are claiming it to be? And like, if that's such a true story, then how have I not done it yet? And so I came in sort of with that in mind. But in the back of my mind, I do think I was like hopeful. Like, I don't feel like my friend would lead me astray. So I think there's something here. But I just wanted that like barrier to entry being so low that if I hated it, I would ditch the horse trough, like drop it off somewhere and never see it again. Um, but for me, when I first tried it, I certainly felt the dopamine surge. When I got out of there for like the first several weeks, I just remember being like, I'm just inherently smiling and just feel like very happy. And I don't know why. Like this is an unusual, I'm an optimistic person, but I wouldn't say that I usually feel just joyful and happy and at ease with things. And I would get out of there and be like, oh my God, I just feel so good.
Mm,
And then that, I mean, certainly that's still a component of it, but I think then it really shifted to the mental side of things, which was really what I was after anyways.
mm,
And just that clarity of mind, the focus that would come from it, and just feeling like my whole system got a little reboot and my mind's cobwebs were all cleared out and I could face what the day was holding for me. So that continues to be what gets me in the cold water. And it has not changed. I still hate cold water. So there's like that just never ends, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's the discipline of it, right? Is like
Hmm.
recognizing how it makes you feel after you engage with it,
100%.
like kind of get you through the uh hard point of it, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, makes
I
sense.
totally agree. Totally agree.
I've only done the ice plunge after the sauna, so I don't know
Mhm.
how I would feel about getting in just the cold water because I
Yeah.
think the sauna is such torture for me that coming out of the sauna, I'm like, yep, I'll get in the ice water. Absolutely. So, how does that work for you? Do you like start
Yeah.
your day with this or
I do. So it's in my backyard. It's not still only the trough. So thankfully we've upgraded a little since then. But I realized the other day I have like a little routine for myself and I don't plunge every day. For me, if I do it that rigidly, like my body just doesn't need that, but I do need it 3 to 5 times a week. So like it's more than not. And but I'll get up, I do like coffee, meditation, relax for a little bit. And then when I go wake my kids up, that's kind of my cue. So I stay in my pajamas till then, and I only go straight from pajamas to swimwear because if I
Mhm.
go straight to clothing, it never will happen.
That's good. It's good to
Yeah.
know.
I could
Yeah.
see myself being more interested in jumping in the cold plunge after I wake my kids up.
Yeah.
You know what? Let me go take a break real quick before I
Right.
deal with these animals. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just how I feel about
Totally. Mine
it.
is like pre-breakfast mayhem. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go do this. I'll dry off and then I'll come do the rest of
Then I'll
this.
come handle these. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And if they get close, you just pull them in and then they leave you alone, right?
True
How do
story.
Uh,
your kids respond to it? Because my kids are braver than me and they will just
Mm.
get right in the ice.
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
They're a mix. So my little one has had a zero interest. Zero interest. She's 10. She's like, no. So there's that. And then my older one, she's 13, and it's really funny. I feel like there's a resistance to me specifically. Like if I suggest it, she's like, nope, never, thank you. And then if I am gone, and my husband does it now too, he'll be like, hey, you seem super dysregulated. Like, do you want to just pop in the plunge and then we'll have dinner or whatever it is? And she's like, sure. Okay. So I'll get these messages from him later, like, hey, Soph did great, like whatever. And she'll stay in it for a little while. Like to your point, she stays in longer than I do. So when she does it, and it definitely works, but it has to definitely be on her own terms. And I just kind of let her make that choice for herself. I know she'll feel better, but like she has to own that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you tried telling her not to go in it
Ooh, that I like. I have not.
as a
Whatever you
That's gonna
former
do,
get
don't
lower.
13-year-old
go in.
girl? I mean, I was a very rebellious 13-year-old girl, and that reverse stuff totally worked. I mean, like, fine, I'm gonna go in it. What, you don't think I can now? And then so just, I'm not a
Hey,
parent, but there's some thoughts.
I
Uh,
like that. No, I like that. I hadn't actually thought of the reverse. It's not a bad idea.
you'll have to report bad if
I
it.
will.
You did say something about how, you don't do it every day. You're not super rigid, 3 to 5 times a week. How do you
Yeah.
determine the days when you're doing
Hmm.
it? Like, is it just kind of how the day unfolds, or is it more like on an I feel the need for it basis?
I think it's a blend. It's definitely many practices where I listen to my body, but this one in particular, I really do. So, like, one thing I might not do is like if I didn't sleep great the night before, I'll be like, I'm not going to add a stress to my body and do that. Or more commonly, honestly, it'll be like based on schedule, where I'm like, I really want to allow myself the time to warm up. And if I know I got to go jump in the shower to do this at this time, and I'm not going to have that time to actually warm up, then I just kind of table it for the day and go back the next.
That's fair.
Yeah.
How
I
long
will
do you
say,
go in? Oh, sorry, Laura.
oh, God.
I do it for anywhere from like 2.5 to 3.5 minutes. I have a couple of different mantras that I like to listen to. And so, like, one is 2.5, one's 3.5. So, just depending on the day, I kind of choose whichever one I'm wanting to do. And I find if I do stack my days of doing it, by those later days, I can definitely go for longer. it's amazing to me how your body like resets to if you're on vacation and you're away for a week and then you come back, it's like you're literally starting over again. It's
Oh yeah.
crazy. So I honestly am not I'm pretty self-competitive person, but this isn't a practice where I really don't do that. It's not like, okay, I want to get the coldest water for the maximum amount of time. I really don't do that. Mine is like, I feel like my sweet spot is like mid 40s and for like that 2.5 to 3.5 minutes. Or, I mean, people will do it with ice floating around them. I spoke to one woman who's like, yep, I do that for like 37 degrees for 7 minutes or something like that. And for me, I can tell the next day. So I like biometrics and things like that. So, like, I can look and see my sleep took a dive, my HRV is taking a dive, things like that. And so I know I have actually pushed too far then. So I've done that enough times to know, okay, I kind of have a range that works, but there's a lot of benefit in playing around with it too. Maybe warming it up and staying longer, or going down just a couple degrees and playing with like 30 seconds less. So it's kind of fun in that way to just be almost like a scientist for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know my family is big in water skiing and
Yeah.
uh I'm from Chicago,
Hmm.
so it's up there and it's cold when we try and go water skiing, especially
Yeah.
if we have to go really early in the morning. And it is to this day like the best way to cure a hangover for me is just jump in the water and just go water skiing.
Yeah.
So I've always like I've done cold plunging plenty of times, and
Yeah.
I got my husband one for Christmas. We just haven't set it up yet because we plan on moving. But
Hmm.
I love the idea of like doing it to wake myself up to merge me from like meditation into like my workout because
Yeah.
the dopamine high that you get from it is so extensive. It just
Hmm.
really, I think that was one of the things that really opened my eyes to like the science and the understanding of like why cold plunging. Because similar to you, like I don't like the cold. That's why I
Yeah.
don't live in Florida or in Chicago anymore.
Yeah.
I came to Florida, the exact opposite because cold. Um, but being familiar with Anna Lemke's work and like how the pain pleasure scale works, I think that's one
Hmm.
of the really important aspects of the plunge. And seeing that you're biometric driven, do you notice like a trend in the data when you do your plunge and like how it affects your stress and resilience for a certain duration throughout the day?
Yeah, for sure. I think, well, so the stress one is wild for what it's worth. And I'm not saying this as like tooting my own horn, but I'll just say it because it's interesting and I think you guys might find it interesting. So on the Aura Ring, it'll obviously say like your number of minutes under stress. I have
Yeah.
a friend who was like polling people online of saying, what is your average stress per day? Like, I'm just curious, right? So, she's also a business owner, like very a lot of similarities. So I was like, oh, I'm so curious, like what people will say. She was 7 to 8 hours a day in stress. The average was 3 to 4 hours a day in stress. Mine usually will top out at 45 minutes. And that's like, I have been under a lot. So, I mean, usually it's between about 15 minutes of stress a day. So I think I just have enough, you know, balance in my system, or maybe counterbalances, I should say, almost like, so when those stresses come up, I inherently know how to bring them down. And it's almost just an instinctual kind of pattern now. It's not something that I actively have to work for nearly
Mm.
as much as I used to. And I can't really accredit anything other than the cold plunging that would be that dramatic of a change that would make that.
Hmm.
So it definitely makes a huge difference. And that and sleep. Sleep, it definitely makes a difference for me on that, which is kind of wild because you're like, I religiously do it in the morning because I do get such an energy boost from it. I really can't do it in the evening. I tried, it totally backfired. So, some people can, it's not for me. And it's wild to me that something I do, 16 hours before I go to sleep is that impactful in the end. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
That is
Interesting.
wild. It's kind of cool though.
It is
Yeah.
cool. It's cool how our bodies just like slowly taper off from the benefits of it. I think that's something that like remains so interesting to me. Like the dopamine, right? You get this big hit of it, but it's not like it crashes like it does if you're like online shopping or something. Like it like slow trickles down through the day. And I hope there's become some research around this as far as, you know, as you do it consistently, do you almost make a new baseline? And then that baseline really, it even slower trickles down. Because I have a working theory in my head that that's the case, but I would love to know if that's actuality.
So
I mean, I don't have the answers, but you should definitely contact Anna Lemke. I'm sure she knows it.
Hmm.
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
What would you say is the benefit of doing a cold plunge versus the cryotherapy?
Mm. I will be totally honest and own that I'm not an expert in the cryo. So, but I can tell you from personal experience, which I think is also valuable. So I've done both, and the cryo for me was such a shock on my system. It just physically didn't feel good for so long that, cold water, you're in it, you're uncomfortable, you're out, you start warming up. It's very short where like my skin just hurt when I did the cryo and it was also so expensive and you can't like bring that home, right? You don't really have a way to simulate that at home if you want to give it a try. So, for me, those were the reasons that it just didn't take. I did it a couple times, but I was also always fearful that I would like get frostbite or something like that, because there's a very small window between this is just going to be uncomfortable and am I like risking my health right now? you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, for me, and from what I have read, I listened to a couple podcasts that were specifically about that. And in general, like there needs to be more science and research done around it. But in general, people do tend to lean towards the cold water being more sustainable on an ongoing basis than specifically the cryo. And I think the cryo might be a little bit more targeted, like if you have a specific issue or a specific area of your body you're working on too, that goes along with it more than like whole
Mhm.
body health.
Do you submerge in the water?
Oh, I do not because
Oh,
I do
okay.
like to do my hair every day. Um, so I've never done it, but I do know people that swear by, especially if you do sauna, like you said, if you do sauna and then get out, I've heard that is the way to go because it literally will like release that through your head, like let everything out. But it just sounds so cold. I've never done it yet.
I did it for like
Someday.
a few seconds, but not
Yes.
not long.
No, not long. And I think that's the principle really in general is just like dip and then come back out and then, you're good. But when you think about it, that's what you do if you were if you were going water skiing, right? Like if you were getting in there, you're going to jump in, get all wet, and then you're going to get out at some point. So it makes sense. But I don't think you have to do that to get the benefits. Really, if you go up to your collarbone, that's where you really, I mean, that's a super sensitive point, and you'll know when you're there, obviously. And then that's good. You're getting the benefits. You don't have to soak under.
Now, in your practice, I know they say that there's like a brown fat resistance that it helps with.
Mhm.
So did you notice weight loss as a benefit?
I do think that it helps. I definitely think it helps, especially as you keep going. I would say honestly, my husband has benefited from that maybe a little bit more than me. I tend
Mhm.
to be somebody who kind of just stays the same size regardless. And so it definitely helps. It certainly helps in seasons where movement and exercise is harder to fit in. If I keep with the cold plunging, I'm pretty consistent. Nothing really shifts and changes too much. But I do definitely think that it helps with the creation of more lean muscle mass. So those two go hand in hand, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's cool.
Yeah, not a
Um,
bad benefit.
Oh.
I've also heard, sorry, Laura, that I'm talking so much. You can pop in.
You chitter chatter. I'm here. Keep going.
Uh, that for some women in particular, it can be too much of a shock to their system. So what do
Mhm.
you think about that?
That's so interesting. I listened to the Mel Robbins podcast where she had on, I think it was Dr. Stacy, that's kind of her working theory of, it is that women should lean heat instead of cold. Our bodies are made for that, and that the cold is too taxing, like you said. And it was interesting because I hadn't heard that before, and it honestly kind of rocked me. I was like, have I been doing this wrong the whole time? Have I been advocating for this incorrectly? Like, I would hate for that to be the case. And so I really like took it to my own practice. And I was like, okay, do I really feel too depleted after I do this? And I mean, it was a resounding no for me. So I really think it's such an individual practice, and you just have to honor that. For sure, for some people, a higher temperature, 55, 60 is the way to go. That's great. But there's nothing wrong also with testing yourself and seeing if those lower temperatures actually feel good to you.
Yeah, I have one friend that would do the cold plunge with me, and for her,
Yeah.
it was a lot harder.
Yeah.
She's one of those people that is really competitive, so she would make
Hmm.
stay, but then it
Yeah.
would be like super cold for like hours
Yeah.
afterwards. And
Yeah.
so I was thinking, in her case, for example, maybe that was too much. Maybe we shouldn't be pushing like that.
For sure. And I think those are like the things that are important to talk about of like say your feet. If your feet are not warming up for hours, you've gone too far. Like that, or you could also because that'll come along with just maybe you have circulation challenges, things like that. I know some people will literally put socks on their feet just to like make a little barrier so that that intensity of the cold isn't directly on it. So I think there's ways around that, but the importance is really like listening to the cues that your body is telling you afterwards, you know? It's like if you go to a hot yoga class and for like the next hour, you feel nauseous and awful, like wasn't the thing. Like, it's okay. Move, try something else, or maybe that just wasn't the day. But yeah, I think everybody is really individual, and it can ebb and flow for you too. You know, what works this week or month might not be a year from now. So just kind of tuning into those cues and honoring them, I think, is really important.
Yeah,
Is
I heard a similar study about like what Dr. Stacy was saying, and it
Yeah.
rocked my understanding as well. I was like, hold on, I thought that this was
Right?
good. And upon further research, like a lot of what I've learned is kind of similar to what you're saying about like it's person to person.
Mhm.
And I mean, naturally, there's less studies about how it impacts women, which isn't uncommon. But
Mhm.
there was some studies I found about it being more helpful, like in menopause,
Uh-huh.
and to help create that regulation. Could you speak more about that? Do you know more about that?
Yeah, I don't know specifically for menopause, but I can tell you I am right in the thick of perimenopause, and I do think that that absolutely helps because I think if I had I would say I started cold plunging before that, and then or before I was in that stage of life, and then now I'm there, and I haven't felt as many of the swings that my close friends that we talk about all of the things with, like my experience is different. So I do think from that hormonal balance, it's not something to ignore. I do think that it truly helps.
how long have you been doing it?
Just over 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
And you have a business.
I do. I do.
Why, like, what was it about this that made you want to turn it into a business? Because I
Yeah.
mean, plenty of things that, like, I enjoy cold plunging, but and maybe it's
Yeah.
because I already have a business, but what about it made it special for you?
Yeah. That's a good question. Uh, After my youngest was born, I think there was something about an entrepreneurial spirit that kind of came out of me. It was always in me. It's just like it's all down my mom's side of the family. So I think I just kind of recognized it at that stage of life. And I really tried to find something that was the fit. And in my head, the fit was like, okay, I can work a full-time corporate job and have two kids and do this like side hustle, whatever that's going to be. So I tried that for a number of years, all of which, they all had a mental health and holistic health feel to them. And so then, so it was like all of those didn't happen or take off for the right reasons. And then by the time that I got in the cold plunge, it was almost like all of those
Yeah.
like learnings and all of those like snippets of ideas kind of came together with the cold plunge. And I would literally sit there in the trough and imagine like, how can I help more women get in the water? Because that was like my number one thing. I was like, there are so many men that are being marketed to on this, but nobody's talking about how, and it's a little more now, right? But you don't hear a lot of women going on podcasts or being a voice for cold plunging. It just doesn't happen. And so I just was imagining how could I make this appealing? Nobody's ever going to like cold water, but like, what if I made it beautiful? So it was like a piece of art in your backyard. What if I made it comfortable and it was, so we put a chair inside of it because then your body's literally held in this uncomfortable situation. So I thought about it from a feminine perspective of like, what are all of these elements that make me want to go to it? And how do we like physically represent those in a product? And so that was really like, it all got dreamt up in there. And then it was wild. Like it was like the universe was conspiring with me the entire way. It was like, well, okay, I think I have this idea. And it was like, okay, and now you will meet this person who will help you with that thing. And then it just kept snowballing. And here we are today.
That's really cool.
That is
Thank
cool.
you.
When did you open?
So we started designing the product only a little over a year ago. So it's called the Chill Pod, and we're officially launching next month. So I just got back from the manufacturer doing a final sit and all of these good things. And I will say for anyone who is like mildly inspired by an entrepreneurial journey, it is very cool to see something from your head come into real life that you can touch and feel and sit in. It is unlike anything that I've gotten to do before. It's very cool.
So
That is
you're actually selling the pods. There's not like a location that people go to and get in the pods.
Yeah, no, we're selling the pods themselves. So
Okay.
primarily we're selling those into, like you described, the contrast therapy, or, gyms, luxury hotels, things like that, so that people can try them because it is something that you need to probably experience before you decide if you want to bring one to your house. So that's how we're going. We won't have showrooms, but hopefully we'll have many places to be able to go and see them.
nice. That's
The
cool.
first time I did a cold plunge, somebody that was participating said, uh, the research shows that people say the dopamine rush that you get is similar to the dopamine rush that you get when you do cocaine.
Mhm.
I personally have not done cocaine, but I didn't think that the rush was that intense.
Hmm.
A recipe get this intense euphoric feeling.
All
You
right, that's it.
coffee
We need to
first,
find
or
someone. We need to find someone who's done a cold plunge and cocaine and get them in and see a comparison. Like, was this
Yeah, I'm
just
sorry,
like,
I'm not your girl.
come on, come
I
on,
know,
Chris. We
such
were
a
counting on
lame.
you.
I know. That would have been fun if I was the girl, but I was not.
have you heard that though?
Yes, I have heard it. I was actually thinking you were going to say heroin. So,
Oh, that's
Not
warmer
bad.
though, I think. I don't know.
yeah,
I haven't done that either, but from what I
no.
hear, people describe it as a warm blanket.
Okay. Yeah, I can't say for myself, but I do get that euphoric feeling. Like for me, I every time I get in it, it goes from my toes through my head. It's almost like a little lightning bolt that like goes through me, and then it literally just feels like I'm reset. So I don't know if that's like necessarily the euphoric side, but it does feel like this crazy like charge that goes through my body.
I was thinking too that I don't know what the temperature of the water was that I did because I doubt it was 40 degrees.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if depending on what it is, you might be able to like see the temperature. If it's like temperature controlled, sometimes you'll be able to like see what that is set at. But it just depends on what they have kind of going there. I
Yeah.
would say, well, I was gonna say 40 would be really low for like a community setting or like a spot where it's a shared place, right? Because usually they'll air higher, just, to make sure that it's not too much on someone's system, especially if you're coming from the heat and going in there. Usually I feel like those are more like 45, 50. But I did just have a friend tell me that a place down the street from me, he's like, no, I went in for 8 minutes. It was 40 degrees. I was like, okay, that's
Yeah.
really cold for a long
Now,
time.
what's the benefit of going longer than the 3 minutes? Because I heard that the recommendation is like 9 minutes a week or something like that.
Yeah. I actually love that. So that whole concept of a certain number of minutes per week versus each time, I think is such a great way to approach the practice because you're not really saying, okay, I need to do 8 minutes today, and then I don't do it at all for the rest of the week. You can break that up into, I want to do it a minute each day of the week, and or however you want to break that out. So I think that's a great way to approach it because at the end of the day, it's not longer is better. It's not like it's your own, because what happens is you're putting your body in fight or flight, obviously. And then it's your body's ability to dip into that and then come back out of it. And it's that resilience factor of coming back up to temperature that your body, that's the secret sauce, right? That's what's teaching it to be able to handle stress in a somewhat controlled environment. So if you're pushing it really hard to be in fight or flight for minutes and minutes on end, you're actually just taxing your nervous system. You're putting it through more stress, and depending on all your factors, right? How you slept, what you ate, where you are in your cycle, all these things, it'll depend on how you can bounce back from that. And so you want to be able to bounce back. So I always think of it as like if you're starting out, start at a high temperature for a little bit of time. And if you feel nothing, then just kind of build up from there. And your two variables are just time and temperature. And then you can play with them as you want.
Can you go more in detail on some of the like mental and emotional benefits? I know you mentioned like your exploration with your daughter, and I even heard the hint of your husband, like you seem dysregulated. Do you want to plunge as like a
Mhm.
prompt for her to get in?
Mhm.
And I'm familiar with a lot of that. So
Yeah.
being that that was kind of the early aspect of the journey, you mentioned the mental clarity and things like that, but how do you experience it? And what have you even seen with your kids in terms of regulation and resilience and just kind of having more of that mental fortitude?
Yeah. So for my daughter, I would say like if she wears all of her emotions all right outside. So you know exactly what's going on with her, which is great. I tuck it all inside, so you don't know. So with her, you can tell like as soon as she's out of sorts, she's dysregulated, and that's just like common like terminology in our house now at this point. And so for her, when she will go dip in the cold and then come back out, it's like all of that just washes away. It literally, she is back in her body. She is calm. She's cold, but she's not, that almost just flips a switch. It feels like a light switch to me where it's like, okay, I was in this state of mind and now I'm in that and I'm back. So
Yeah.
for her, that's what I witness in her. And I think for me, honestly, the baseline great things are like that, the mental focus and being able to just like clear out the junk. But I had a friend tell me one time, like, do you think that you can do really brave things because you do a brave thing like first thing in the morning? And I had never thought about it in that way. And I was like, immediately, like, hell yes, that is exactly the thing. Because when it's never desirable, but I know how I'll feel after. And I know that because I've taught my body to be able to handle that, I do things I would never have done before. And so there's a lot to be said for that. And it's kind of like the sleep thing, right? Like you do this thing at one point in the day early on, and it just trickles down and plays throughout the day. And it's no different on like the bravery front of being able to really step into this like higher level of yourself because you've shown yourself this is totally possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, you know, I've heard quotes around things like that with like working out and how getting
Mhm.
yourself to do something that you don't want to do, getting yourself to do something that is painful. Like actually on the Huberman podcast, he talks about like a very specific part of your brain that grows that is
Mm.
associated with longevity based
Hmm.
on your ability to do things that are hard or uncomfortable for you.
Yeah.
So I like that your friend asked like brave as the word because I do think that is a really good depiction because it's your ability to move through things you don't want to do, which
Yep.
often takes bravery or courage.
Yeah.
And I really think it's fascinating because, I've seen a bunch of different things in terms of like somatic soothing, where if you're really trapped in a hard emotion, like submerging your hands in ice cold
Hmm.
water, or like, depending on what you're doing, and if you're at home, like putting your face in ice cold
Yep.
water and like being able to regulate in that capacity. So
Yep.
obviously the chill pod is the A+ version. Do you
Yeah.
ever dabble with different modalities if like you're out and about or anything like that, knowing how it has an impact?
Yeah, it's a great question. I am one that's like, okay, I do it in this way. This is my routine. So sometimes I don't think of it as much, which is funny because I always recommend the same thing to other people. Like as a starting point, like put your hands in ice water, try the face bath, all these things. I will say, like if I've been gone for an extended period, I took my daughter down to California for a bit last year, and I was missing it so much. Like I could really tell that I needed more than just my meditation and tapping and things like that. And so I was like, okay, I'll do the cold shower because I really hate cold showers. But I did it and it helped, and it wasn't super cold, but it was better than nothing. And so, yeah, being able to kind of recognize that shift in your body's need for it, and then just finding some similar way to go about it is great.
I have a friend who plays golf, and he was telling me, "Oh, you have to end every shower with cold water." And I was like, I don't
I
know.
don't have to.
And he was like, I
No,
swear it becomes addicting.
it's the same idea, right? But I don't know, for me, I tried, and my shower is such a ritual that like that's one of the few times where like I get 5 minutes to go just enjoy the hot water. I like it so hot it will almost burn me. The last thing I want to do is end that with cold. Like don't ruin my moment. I don't want to do this. So to each their own. It's totally the same process and could be great, but I'll always say like if you detest that like I do, like there's other ways to try it.
I do detest it, so
It's
thank you.
gross. It's
On
terrible.
the shower, I'm not a fan of the cold either, but I will splurge and say when I'm sweaty and like just after a workout and I'm trying to like quickly shower and then get on to whatever's next, this sweat don't stop for like hours. So
Yes.
you need to shift to the cold at a certain point. Uh,
Yeah.
Totally prefer the cold plunge versus a cold shower.
Yeah.
Much nicer to be submerged versus randomly hit by it, but
Yes.
I'll do it. And one of the things I recognize is how my breath just like automatically is like like when I get used to it.
Yeah.
So as you were kind of embarking on your cold plunge journey, did it make you more aware of your breath, or
Mhm.
what associations do you have now with the your breath and the cold and how you see it throughout your day?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I think just in general, it's like that sense of presence when you get in there. So I think now my body's almost kind of trained that, okay, when we get in here, this is how I breathe. I know a lot of people do box breathing and stuff. I just try and breathe as slow as possible.
Mm,
So, which is honestly what I would do during the day too. If I feel myself amping up, I'm like, okay, just slow everything down, starting with my breath.
mm,
And it's interesting. A few times lately, I know some people will get shivers and stuff, and that's almost like people will say that's the goal, right? To have that when they're in the cold plunge. I don't get it when I'm in there. And I think it's because I can steady my breath and I can do that and I can just really regulate myself in there. But when I get out, and if it's been cold enough, like a half an hour later, I'll just start shivering out of nowhere for like 10 minutes. And so I've noticed it lately, and I don't know why that is, but I'll be like sitting in a meeting and just start shivering. And it's like it all just catches up and then it goes away. So it's very wild. I don't know. That's a new iteration. We'll see if it sticks around.
Part of the menopause. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah.
Probably. Blame
Tangent.
it on that.
I did notice and do notice that when I first get in the ice, I can't take a deep breath. It's like
Sure.
And then I have to like try to get control over it. So
Mhm.
is that normal? I mean,
Yeah, I think that's totally normal. No, I think that literally gasp, like take your breath away is kind of the thing. Like that's not uncommon or a sign that you're doing it wrong or anything like that.
okay. All
Yeah.
right, cool.
That's
Keep
normal.
doing
Don't listen to her. That's abnormal.
it.
Okay, well, this has been super cool, and I do love that we're using the cold plunge, particularly for nervous system regulation, because, I think when pe other people are talking about it, it sounds like they're emphasizing other benefits. But
Mhm.
from a mental health perspective, of course, I enjoy this aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the lesser talked about piece, but honestly, like it plays into everything else. So, yeah, I'm with you.
I have one last question before we kind of close things
Sure.
up. Part of your journey, you shared like your own apprehension, and you had that fr persistent friend. So if there
Mhm.
is someone who's listening who's like, all right, well, I've heard this before, but like this feels a little different. Still don't like the idea of cold water though. So like, what would you say to them to help them find the courage to actually see for themselves?
It's a great question. And I would say, you actually said it earlier, so it would have been my answer too. But imagine on the other side of it. So you never are going to like the idea of the cold. Like if you don't like it, you're just not going to. And that's not the thing. But the more we give like power to the resistance of that, it just leaves us stuck. So I always like, maybe as silly as it sounds, I always like picture like a magic wand and be like, if you had a magic wand to literally wave it and be like, I could feel any way, what would that look like? And then if you can imagine that, I truly think like when we take that intention and bring it in the water with us, it starts to unfold. Like those things actually start to happen and there's meaning in that. And so instead of just continuing to like bump up against that wall of resistance, just like float over it and be like, okay, on the other side, look at all these amazing things I would love to do or feel or any of that. And that's actually the stuff to hold on to.
Oh, that's really cool. I
Yeah.
like that too, just from a perspective of avoidance, because from
Mhm.
again the therapy side of things, when we avoid things, they just become so much bigger for us. And if we
Totally.
just do it, then we're like,
Yes.
oh, this wasn't so bad.
Exactly. And I mean, honestly, at a like base level, I hope that somebody hearing another woman's perspective on it helps because again, like so many of the voices we hear or the bodies we see or any of that are it's all male representation. So sometimes it's just as simple as being like, okay, well, I can relate to her stage in life. Like I can relate to that a lot more. Maybe I can try it too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
mean, it's an experiment, right? You just got to test something. I know I had to get the word in. Don't get mad at me. I mean, you're the one who brought up cocaine, so I'll take experiment. It's good to experiment not with cocaine, but with a cold plunge to clarify, just to see what it is for you. And even if it's 30 seconds and just
Yep.
like see what your experience is. I mean, the resistance is real. And I remember the first time I did like the cold hands, and my hands are always cold. So, like, the
Yeah.
idea of putting my hands in cold water, I was like, no, I don't want to. But I was
Mhm.
so angry. I was like, whatever at this point. And I did it and I was like, what the heck? It is that impactful. Like, I don't have to run to get rid of this. I can just put my hands in cold water. Like, that feels so much easier. But I really think just the willingness to experiment and see what it is and be like yes or no and let it be what it's going to be.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And just because it's only your hands, like not to be taken lightly. I was at a corporate office one day and they had just done a like stress resilience training with all of their execs. And they're all these people that are like super hardcore and intense about wellness and stuff. And he was like, we had all of them put their hands in ice water to see how long they could do it for. And all of them were like, it's fine, I got this. This will be like 15 minutes. And they it was very humbling, let's just say. So, when you do it, like applaud yourself too, because it's not easy. Not everyone does it. And it's really amazing when you do.
And to just kind of put a little cherry on top of what you were saying, like I loved your friend's comment about do you feel like you can handle things with more courage or be more
Mhm.
brave? Whether you're interested in cold plunge or not, and maybe there's something you want to get yourself to do, but you've been
Yeah.
struggling to get yourself to do it. This is also a tool that you can use to build that fortitude in yourself to help you get to where you want to go because we aren't given all the tools to figure this stuff out all the time, but that doesn't mean we can't see tools like the chill pod or a cold plunge and build our own resilience to help us get wherever we want to go.
100%. Well said.
Cherry.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, very much appreciate you informing us about all of this and joining us here today. I am interested too in the other wellness things that you tried. I'm just curious about
Yeah.
that. We might have to save that for another time.
We can totally save it for another time. I will literally try almost anything. So
Oh, cocaine? No, I'm just kidding.
not cooking, but I do experiment, to use your word.
Coming full circle.
If I have to bring up drugs, Laura has to bring up experiments. So
Only fair. It's only fair. I mean, you are bringing up drugs all the time now, so
I am. It happens. To be fair, I do have a background in substance abuse, so
you can't help it.
yeah, I can't help it.
That is not what we're facilitating, but we are absolutely recognizing the impact and power in just something that's supernatural. And I think that's one of my favorite aspects of it is it's water. It's
Mhm.
just a different temperature water. And like, yeah, I'm not gonna like it. I'm never gonna like it. But everything we talked about how much capability it builds in us and what it can do for our body. I think that's in a world where like we're always looking for like the quick fix, a pill that you have no idea where it was made or what's actually in it versus
Mhm.
like a cold temperature water. Like if you want to do something good for your actual like vessel, that is much safer and much healthier. So
Yeah.
go and cold plunge, peeps.
Yep. Zero side effects. Like pretty worst case, you don't feel any different. Or maybe worst case, you're extra cold. Like that's it. It's pretty mellow compared to other options.
You know, I will also add my favorite thing when I get out of a cold plunge is something my mom used to do when I was a kid, which is like the towel in the dryer. So then you get the warm
Yeah.
towel,
Yeah,
right?
good call.
Best thing coming out of a cold plunge because I did it. I got all my dopamine, but now get me warm.
Yeah. And so comforting. It does make you feel like a little kid.
Yeah.
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 Ooh, inner child work, even better. All
Now
right.
more so. Go ahead.
Well, we got a roll for today, but thank you again. And I'm excited to get in the cold plunge.
How can
Good. Well, you're
people
already doing it, so just keep doing it.
how can people connect with you, find you to, get chilling in this pod?
Yes. So if you want to check out the Chill Pod, you can go to thechillpod.co or we're on Instagram at the same, thechillpod.co. And if you want to follow along on my side of things, hear a little bit more like behind the scenes, founder side of things, I'm at Kris Rice Wellness on Instagram. And I don't know when this is actually launching, but we are actually opening doors in June. So it's an exciting time here. So if you're curious, follow along and I would love to share it with you.
Awesome. Will do. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Chris.